Light Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Vaughan Amare, and I'm very delighted to be here with you all. Northern Light Center for Spiritual Living is a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. And Northern Light Center for Spiritual Living offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. And our promise here is to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle.
It doesn't matter how many times people tell you that you can't do it. It doesn't matter if you don't have a dime in there.
The thing that's causing you pain today.
The Tuwamish and Coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. In a similar fashion, we acknowledge how much of what we know in this country today, its culture, economic growth, and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horrors of transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to their labors and sacrifices, and we acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and resulting impacts that can still be felt and witnessed today. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room, by Ron and Carol Harris.
Let's see if I can do this again.
I will not leave this opportunity
Until I get it.
Are you in a storm or are you just in between two miracles? You take those terrible events in your life and you create a new story of triumph. We gotta become something new. We take those traumas, we take that pain, and we allow it to become a part of who we want to be. What if I told you you got everything you need to make it through your storm? This storm will not take you out. And I know you've been tired, and I know it's been hurting, and I know it's been like, I don't know what.
Reverend Michael obviously has something on the internet that is longing to make expression today.
Sounded okay.
Oh, this was, yes, I guess. Okay. Now let's try. I apologize, the gremlins. It's the first of the year gremlins. They need to be noticed.
Oh, that was an interesting page turn.
Okay, let's try this. Come on. Okay, I'm going to, hello. Ah,
Okay.
voila!
So please join me if you care to or be sung to. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. For Spirit, sweet Spirit, is in this very room. In this very room. And before I turn this over to Michael, I just want to give a shout out and a welcome back to Victor, who has been last several months. So
You're welcome. Yeah.
Hi everyone, glad to be back.
Hi, Eric.
Thank you.
I wondered where he wandered off to.
He was saving.
he was on a semester at sea.
Ah.
Good morning. Now that the gremlins are, except this thing I can't handle. It's not going to work. Safely put to bed. We'll get more lights next week. Anyway, here we are, first Sunday of 2025. And this is the time that we set aside for a little bit of centering. For allowing ourselves to be still and to be in the present moment. And to just relax and find as comfortable as you can, or get as comfortable as you can, whether you're sitting, standing, however you are. And just allow your body to sink into that space. To release everything that's come before this moment. Any worries, woes, frustrations, anything that's bothering you or worrying you, just, set it on the shelf. And you can pick it up later if you choose. Today, this is kind of a guided meditation. And I'm going to today is not a good gremlin day. And so as we relax into the moment and allow ourselves to just be centered. Let's take a few moments together just to slow down and to connect with ourselves. I invite you to find that comfortable position, as you did. Whether you're seated, standing, or wherever you are, just allow yourself to be. Now let's begin by focusing on our breath. Let's take a nice, deep, slow breath in. Allowing your breath to fill your lungs and release. Let's try that one more time. And as we release, we inhale through our nose and release through our mouth. Inhale. And release. Next, bring your awareness to your body. Notice the sensations where you're in contact with the seat on the floor. Feel the weight of your body and the support it receives. Allow yourself to be present to these sensations without the need to change anything. Because they're perfect just the way they are. As you continue to breathe deeply and focus on your body, gently bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice what's passing through your mind without judgment. But just notice what's going through your mind. Simply observe these thoughts as they come and go. There's no need to make anything happen or to change anything about yourself right now. Just allow yourself to be fully present with your breath, your body, and your mind. Your breath, your body, and your mind. As we increase our awareness in this moment, we begin to open ourselves up to deeper connections and conscious change. When we're in touch with our body, our breath, our mind, we begin to open to deeper connections and conscious change. So as we take a few more deep breaths together, inhaling peace and exhaling any remaining tension. So we inhale the peace and release the tension. Or we inhale peace and release anything that does not serve us anymore. Now, when you're ready, gently bring your consciousness and your awareness back to the room, carrying with you the sense of calm and presence that you have cultivated in this moment. Breath in, breath out. It is simple, it is easy. And so it is. And now we go to declaration. Sorry about that. The brain got a little confused. So our declaration, we'll say this 3 times. We are
an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential.
One more time.
We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential.
And so it is. Okay. Now for the reading is from the internet. I don't exactly have forgot the person's name, so we'll call him Anonymous.
Naughty mouse.
We have a naughty mouse. Okay. Okay. In the grand tapestry of existence, the relationship between humanity and divinity has been a subject of fascination, contemplation, and reverence. From the dawn of civilization to the modern era, theologians, philosophers, and seekers alike have grappled with the profound question: what is the nature of our connection to the divine? This examination seeks to delve deep into the timeless inquiry, exploring the concept that humans are created in the image of the divine and the implications it carries for our understanding of existence. 1. Reflecting the divine image. Central to many theological traditions in the belief that humans are created in the image of the divine, that this notion transcends religious boundaries and invites us to contemplate the inherent divinity within each individual. By reflecting on the divine qualities attributed to the divine, such as love, compassion, creativity, and intelligence, we come to recognize the potential within ourselves to embody these virtues. This concept serves as a guiding light, inspiring us to strive for moral excellence and spiritual growth. Number 2 is empathy and understanding. Our captivating aspect of the human-divine connection is the idea that our existence allows us to empathize with the divine experience. Just as humans seek to understand one another through their shared experience, emotions, and perspectives, so too can we strive to comprehend the notion or the nature of the divine. Through empathy, we bridge the perceived gap between finite and the infinite, gaining insight into the challenges, joys, and complexities inherent to divine existence. This empathy fosters a deeper appreciation for the divine within ourselves and in the world around us. Number 3 is partnership in creation. In exploring the relationship between the divine and humanity, we uncover the notion of co-creation. As beings created in the image of the divine, we are imbued with the capacity to participate in an ongoing presence of creation. Whether through acts of kindness, artistic expression, scientific discovery, or spiritual insight, we contribute to the unfolding story of existence. This partnership highlights the interconnectedness of all life and emphasizes our shared responsibility to nurture and steward the world with wisdom and compassion. Number 4 is seeking divine union. Beyond mere reflection and empathy lies the profound yearning for union with the divine. Across cultures and faith traditions, humans have sought to transcend the limitations of the material world and commune with the divine source of all existence. Through prayer, meditation, ritual, and contemplation, we seek to cultivate a deeper connection with the divine, recognizing that in doing so, we draw closer to our true selves and to the essence of all that is. In the intricate dance of existence, the relationship between humanity and divinity serves as a beacon of hope, wisdom, inspiration. By embracing the concept that humans are created in the image of the divine, we unlock the potential for profound transformation and spiritual evolution. Through empathy, partnership, and the pursuit of divine union, we embark on a journey of self-discovery and cosmic exploration, guided by the timeless wisdom that there is no humanity without divinity. Let us embrace the sacred connection with reverence and humility, for in doing so, we awaken to the divine within and without, and fulfill our highest purpose as co-creators in the unfolding. And so it is.
And if you want to get the song, but just before we do the song, this month's theme is stretching into possibilities. So my invitation is for you to join me in a simple stretch. And this simple stretch is to just roll your shoulders forward. So you're gonna lift up your shoulders and roll them forward. And now we're going to do that 4 times, and after 4 times, now we're going to roll our shoulders back. And one of the things that I plan to do through Michael is to send out a lovely 10-minute series of simple stretches that a woman does with her mother who's probably in her 60s or more. So these should be things that most people can do. Another simple one is to just lift your toes off of the floor and keep it there, and then let it down, and then lift your heels up, and then lift up on your toes, and then lift up on your heels. And we'll do that 4 times, lifting up on our toes, lifting up on our heels. And one final time, lifting up on our toes and lifting up on our heels. And a stretch into possibilities can be as easy as a physical stretch in our bodies. So when you hear the notion of being invited to stretch, rather than think, oh my gosh, because I initially heard that and I thought, I'm a pretty tight person. So stretching is not the easiest thing for me. Therefore, make the stretch what works for you. So, hit it, Maestro.
Ooh, Maestro. Good.
Your strand.
Okay.
Maestro.
Better make sure I've got everything correct here. Is it?
You.
That's not the word. It's the other one, the script.
Oh, okay. I thought so. Si, senor.
They took away.
Oh, there.
You were playing with it.
The prophet's dream for a prophet on the street. Now she's stronger than you know. A heart of steel starts to grow. All his life he's been told. There be nothing when he's cold. All the kings and all the blows. He won't ever let it show. 'Cause he's stronger than you know. A heart of steel starts to grow. When you've been fighting for it all your life, you've been struggling to make it right. It's all superhuman. All the hurt, all the lies, all the tears that they cry. In the moment it's just right. You see fire in their eyes. 'Cause he's stronger than you know. A heart of steel starts to grow. When you've been fighting for it all your life, you've been struggling to make it right. It's all superhuman. She got a lions in her heart, a fire in her soul. He's got a beast in his belly that's so hot to control. 'Cause they're taking too much hits and blow, blow. Now the lion might stand back, watching it slow, 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 slow. When you've been fighting for it all your life, you've been struggling to make it right. It's all superhuman. and to make things right. It's how a superhero learns to fly.
Didn't want to go with a 10-minute road solo.
No,
It actually is 10 minutes. But
it's like 3 minutes.
So the notion for this month, the talk title for today is Life's Nature is Our Nature. And we're going to be playing around with some ideas, thinking about life itself, what we think about life, and how what we think about life and what we believe about life ends up showing up in how we show up. So one of the proposals that I'm going to have is that love, wisdom, and creativity have been attributed to life. That life is this constant expression of wisdom, of creativity, and possibly love. When we learn to recognize that what we talk about out there is also in here, in us, something transformational happens. There's a shift. And the great thing about it is that each of us has the power to embrace that shift. Each of us has the capacity to move into that shift in a different way. Now, Ernest Holmes came up with the philosophy, the science of mind. And he came to it through a series of studies. He was studying different authors and different people and different philosophers. And he was so excited about it that he started to invite people to just conversations. He'd have people come over Friday afternoons. And they would sit and listen to him. And he started to develop a crowd. And they said, you should really do this in a bigger place. You should really have this happen in a bigger way. Ernest Holmes didn't say, I'm going to create a philosophy. I'm going to create a religious practice. I'm going to create this. It was something that unfolded. How often do we find that things are unfolding in our own lives? What Ernest Holmes discovered, though, is that when we approach our lives with more consciousness, with more mindfulness, with more alertness and awareness and attention to what's going on, we can engage in it very differently. Now, in that song that I invited us to listen to, that I subjected you all to, because we're stronger than we know, our hearts of steel start to grow. When we've been fighting for it all our life, we've been struggling to make things right. That's how a superhero learns to fly. Every day, every hour, turn our pain into power. What I appreciated about the song is, there's a story that's being depicted. This man goes to work early in the morning and he's all dressed up. And then at his actual work, he's moving through garbage. And I think that that's very apt. How often do we feel like we're moving through garbage in our life? And maybe I'm saying too much about myself, and maybe nobody can relate to the notion of having to deal with garbage. And I tell this story because I think that a lot of times we have a story about our life being garbage. We learn very early on the arc of the story. Life goes along smoothly and then bam, something bad happens. The garbage dumps down on you. That's the arc of every hero's story. Things are moving along fine, and then something bad happens. And living in a world of stories, how often do we get hooked on our own story about the bad things in our lives? How quickly are we likely to retell something terrible that's happened to us? It's almost a sure way to get an audience. I mean, to be honest, we just came through an election where somebody won it based on all of the trauma and the pain that they've gone through. Because people relate to trauma and pain. People relate to the process of being victims. Oh, I'm so put upon, but I'll make it all better. I'll be the hero. What if we choose to be our own heroes? And that's what I really like about the song, is that superheroes have to learn how to fly. In the story of Superman, Superman wasn't born on Earth. Superman was born on Krypton, another planet that blew up. There's nothing left of Krypton except some kryptonite. And kryptonite is the lead for Superman. You know, none of us would do all that well to be drinking lead. Superman gets some krypton and he's very weak. He becomes much more human than under other circumstances. A superhero learns what it is that they know how to do. I don't know any superhero stories where they automatically know everything. I honestly don't know of any deity stories where the deity knows everything. One of the lovely things about the Greek stories is that the gods were a mess. The Roman gods, Hera and Zeus, the king and queen of all creation, they were you would not model that as a great relationship. You wouldn't say, Zeus was somebody who was, you might say, a philanderer. You might say he was not necessarily the most faithful spouse or companion. The lovely thing about these stories is that it had people who were messed up, which is why we can relate to them, which is why we can see ourselves in those stories. Jean Sinead Bolin has gone to write a story about the goddess within, and the gods within. And she's mapped how these Greek and Roman gods and goddesses show up in our own characteristics, in our own everyday lives. How quickly are we willing to embrace the idea of ourselves as divine creative expressions? Is that something that we automatically embrace? When we wake up in the morning, do we acknowledge our own magnificence? We are incredibly powerful with our thoughts and our feelings. Has anybody here found that their thoughts and feelings make a difference in their lives? So what I'm going to propose is that, like life, we are always growing and becoming more loving, more wise, and more creative. But we have to think that. And we have to move it not merely from our heads, where so much can happen. We have to move it into our hearts. We have to let it drop down and sink into our bodies. If we've just got an idea about loving, how many people have run into someone who has lovely ideas about loving, but when you're in a relationship with them, you're like, this is not loving. Or you see yourself and you're like, I want to be loving, but I'm not being loving. I want to be wise, but this isn't wise. Sometimes my wise is closer to wise ass.
Yes.
And creative, we can get stuck in the process of feeling like I can't be creative. We can get overwhelmed with the notion that I want to be creative, and we can be so fixated on being creative that we can't become creative because we don't open ourselves up to anything bigger than ourselves. We just stay in our same old stories, which if we're telling them over and over again, how creative is that on a scale of 1 to 10? If I'm retelling my same old story, it's not particularly remarkable in terms of its creativity. Now, one of the things that Ernest Holmes identified was that he started speaking at a time following a great scientific revolution. We were in a world where sciences had moved and changed the world, changed how the world could work, how people could see the world. And a lot of that related to the idea of scientific laws, that there are things that are predictable. There are things that you can count on happening. Isaac Newton came up with 3 laws of motion. And those laws advanced how things could be built and how things could be created and how things could move. And then there was a whole overlay on top of those laws that Einstein proposed with relativity. Because relativity kind of throws out so much of what Newton had found. But the difference was that Einstein's work is at a submolecular level. Things don't, people just don't pop in and out of existence. I could if we were to modify the video afterwards. I could be standing here, and then I could stand over here, and then we could jump it, put it together, and it would appear as if I just popped out of existence and popped back into existence. And that's what we know about subatomic particles. Things pop in and out of existence all the time. But the laws that Newton proposed, we don't act as if when we build a street, it'll pop out of existence. We certainly don't buy a car thinking it's going to pop out of existence. So, what Ernest Holmes proposed is that there are laws about how the mind can work. And that our minds can engage in a creative process. And one of those things was the notion that life responds to us whether we're conscious or not. This was one of the first things when I was learning about this that made me really frustrated. Because it's like, why is life responding so much to my unconscious? Those things that I'm not aware of, either wanting or not wanting. We've all had things happen connection to it. Sometimes the connection is because we've been completely unconscious. Because we haven't allowed ourselves to wake up. Sometimes the things in our lives happen and help us realize more about ourselves because we see our life unfolding. And again, I can't speak for any of you, but I can speak for me in terms of relationships. I am someone who can be moderately indecisive. But I got into relationships with people who were very decisive. And those very decisive people sometimes made decisions that weren't very positive for me. So I got what I was looking for in a relationship. I got a decisiveness. But the decisiveness sometimes rolled me over. And what I would say that taught me is, in order to kind of navigate my way through that relationship and out of those relationships, I had to become more decisive. And I had to stop being the victim of that decisive person. I had to stop being the victim of the person was someone who took charge. And that taking charge meant also included taking charge of me. So I was perfectly content to be treated like a little lump of laundry that could be carried around and could be washed out and then messed up. There was a power in recognizing my part in that story and to stop simply being the victim of my story. We have all kinds of thoughts and feelings and beliefs that are moving our lives forward. And the invitation is to become conscious of those thoughts and feelings and beliefs. New Year's is a perfect time because how many times have we heard the notion of creating a New Year's resolution? And one of the things that you may have heard is that there's the first Friday in January is often Quitter's Day. It's the day that people say, I've tried my resolutions, they don't work. And years ago, when I started going to the Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle, Kathy Ann Lewis talked about the notion of intentions as opposed to, or in distinction from, resolutions. The notion of a resolution is it's something that I want. And I'm going to move towards what I want. But when it's all focused on the I and my want, if there's nothing else attached to it, it's very easy to drop it. I want to be physically fit. Cool. What am I willing to do to be physically fit? Oh, I'm going to run. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to do more exercise. I'm going to spend more time in meditation. I'm going to. The problem with all of those things is it creates this list that becomes so overwhelming that no human being can really do it. The difference with an intention is that you look to what it is that you're longing for, and you're letting that be the marker. So rather than I resolve to exercise more, I resolve to eat better, I resolve to take all my medication, I resolve. Just people aren't that good with their willpower. But an intention sets it out on life. And it joins and makes life my partner in my pursuit. So with the intention, if I set an intention of vitality, and if I'm conscious about it, I can start asking, is this contributing to that intention of vitality? Is this McDonald's meal really contributing to vitality? Is the choice to try to park as close as possible to the door as I can get contributing to vitality? Now, the second area that I want to play with is the notion that Ernest Holmes said, life isn't something separate from us. Life is expressing through us. So he proposed, we are chemists in a laboratory of the infinite. What then shall we create? If life is infinite, how are we going to choose to live in this infinite life? In this infinite place? When we get up in the morning, will we look at it and say, ugh? Or do we wake up in the morning and say, oh my gosh? How often do we wake up with an, oh my gosh? Oh my gosh, I was able to have an orgasm. I was able to get protein in a really easy way. This is not a commercial for orgasm, by the way. It's just an illustration. That we can engage in our lives with our thoughts and our feelings and our consciousness of it. And we can see our connection to our life with our thoughts and our feelings. If we're one with life, do we embrace the creative power that's within us? Or do we see ourselves as separate from and even in opposition to life? How often do we end up in those stories where we're battling against life? Life is set up against us. If that's what we believe, then that's what's going to show up. How much do we buy into the notion of things being separate as opposed to being all connected? You all know there's a certain politician to whom I do not feel particularly connected. But the more that I focus on the disconnect, the less I focus on connection. That person can challenge me to look more deeply at my own beliefs. If I believe in the significance of women's rights, then that can pull me forward into advancing women's rights. If I believe in the beauty and the majesty of racial equity, then that pushes me into work that advances racial equity. Just because a group of people are reactive to it, racism is racist against me as a white person. I just can't believe how affected I am by racism. Do I want to join their whiny wagon? Or do I say, you're really missing the point? Racism is a system thing. It's a series of interlocking institutions, things that have set things in place. with that labor acknowledgement that I read each week here at the center, it's about recognizing that so much of what we've built in this country is founded on unpaid labor, stolen labor, on stolen land. Oh, sure, we gave the natives some beads and baubles
That was only New York. Yeah.
for New York.
Yeah,
Oh, then we moved out into the land and said, oh, we're just taking it. How often, the story of United States, Michael knows that I'm really irritated at all of the stories that are about like the pioneer, Yellowstone. How great winning the West. Winning the West kept encroaching upon other people's lands and then sending them off to some other place and letting them stay in some other place until we discovered something there that we wanted or something there that we valued. And then it's like, get your ass off of this land because we're going to take it.
The Mormons.
For me, the value of racial equity, the value of acknowledging labor, lets me connect with others. It doesn't mean that I have to connect with people that I think are acting in a jerky way. It can be a mirror to be able to ask myself, how much am I continuing to do that? How much am I relying on whiny old processes and practices? One of the lovely things from Maya Angelou is you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have. So when we realize that we are one with life, that we are the means to which life is showing up, all the creativity of life that is always unfolding. Has anybody here ever tried to weed a garden? Do you know that a garden will just keep producing great weeds? It is the most amazing weed producer that you could ever find.
Excellent soil.
Yeah.
It grows the good stuff and it grows the stuff we don't want. And we get to choose, are we going to take out what we don't want, or are we going to let it choke out what we do want? What do we want with our creativity? It's easier to weed it out when it's little than when it gets real big. Again, I don't know about you, but I know that pulling off the dandelion, if you just pull off the top, the dandelion root grows deeper and deeper and deeper.
Oh, yeah.
Get it out early. Catch our thoughts early. See what they are. How do we consciously choose to bring what we wish into being? If it's not showing up yet, what do we need to weed out? What do we need to nurture? What do we need to encourage? And finally, the third piece that I want to play around with is that we have a power to co-create with life. Do we remain an unsprouted seed, or do we open up to our oneness with life? We've all seen those unsprouted seeds. I had meant to grab a packet. We have a little hibiscus seed that we got in Hawaii. I was going to drag it along today. Because at this point, it's still an unsprouted seed because it's still in its little plastic container. And it's not going to sprout or do anything in its little plastic container. Early on, I'm going to go back, I think, early on, one of the pictures I had was that I've got a Christmas cactus. Its blooms are just coming out. Now, you may ask, why is a Christmas cactus Not done with, because Christmas is done. But the thing is that seeds come about and blooms come about in their own time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we are frustrated with how we are blooming. How do we give ourselves more grace with the rate of our bloom? How do we have a more peaceful relationship with life than that whiny, demanding tone? I wanted this, and I wanted it by this date. What are we believing about life? What we believe about life shows up as us. So my invitation is to consider, what are some of our beliefs about life? Charles Fillmore, who was the co-founder of Unity, proposed that life is an intelligent power, always present, always active. Life abides eternally in its creation and is never separate from it. Wherever there is evidence of creative action, there God is. Life is imbued in everything that is. Even when we don't see it, our looking for it is the presence of life. So, my question is, do we envision life as loving, as wise, and as creative? Do we envision life as a possible place of joy? Or have we let go of those hopes and those imaginings and those visionings of life? How are we looking at life? How are we treating it in ourselves, in each other? How we're holding or imagining or entertaining life creates a space for that very way for life to show up. I believe in the power that each of us have for that. So I have some life work. Thank you, Stephanie. You have now integrated yourself into most people's thinking. So consider places where we can become more conscious this week. Where have we just been floating along and not acting with deliberation? Set an intention or intentions about how we're going to create. I know that participating in the Saturday sessions with Stephanie, one of her intentions is about lavish abundance. Does anyone else want to join in Stephanie's intention about lavish abundance?
Yeah.
Is that something that you'd like to wrap yourself up in?
Very much.
Would you like to have joyous vitality? Not just I'm taking care of my life, oh boy. But oh my gosh, I'm still alive. It is very exciting to me. I was told when I was 20 years old, when I was 19 and 20 years old, you'll be blind and on dialysis by the age of 25. Therefore, in my early 20s, I was a very kind of bitter person. My mom used to comment, you were so cheerful about your diabetes until you hit 20. And then you were kind of miserable. Yeah, I was kind of miserable because I was told I'd be blind and on dialysis, and I was not gung-ho about blind or dialysis. Sorry. But that didn't move me into joyous vitality. It put me in a place of fearful vitality. Okay, I'm going to do everything possible that I can do to avoid blind, dialyzed life. Dialyzed. Think about that word. Dialyzed. And then finally, Consider the stories of our lives. What are the stories that we're telling? Are we telling the stories where we're the victim? Are we telling the stories where life just done us bad, done us wrong? What are the stories that we're telling? Are we telling about when we were the superhero? Are we telling the stories about when we learned how to fly? Are we telling the stories about when we wanted to fly? When we saw flight and we knew that it was a connection, it was something vital. What are our stories? So, those 3 things for life work: places to become more conscious, setting intentions, and considering our stories. I have an affirmation, and then I'll have a closing song. So please join me for the affirmation. With every action, I expand love, wisdom, and creativity. With every action, I expand love, wisdom, and creativity. And one more time. With every action, I expand love, wisdom, and creativity. And then, is there a possibility of positivity?
Ready? Okay. Oh, I hear that. Sorry about that.
While everybody's living life up to chance, I wanna get my body up and do a dance. And I ain't gonna care what the people say. I'm just gonna go ahead and live life my life. Getting up every morning with your suit and tie, while I'll be staying home baking up a pie. Why is everybody so serious? It's gonna make you go delirious. Is there a possibility of positivity? A possibility of positivity? I'm tired of hearing people talk down to me. You just have to realize that life will never be as though when you have fun. Just have to enjoy it while we're young. So let's have fun and enjoy while ba-ba-da-ba-bum, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, yeah. Have you thought about letting something go and to find a new road while everybody else is trying to fit in? You were made to be outstanding. You may think I'm just a dreamer, but I know I'm not the only one who hopes for some possibility and positivity. Possibility and positivity. I'm tired of hearing people talk down to the positivity. Stop taking in the negativity. Because you were born free.
Positivity, positivity.